All right, got your break points and your chapter titles, or not your chapter, I mean your chapter ages here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move from this tool at the Lifeline to a tool that we call the Life Discovery Grid. It's going to help you gain a little more depth of what was happening in each of these chapters of your life. So the next page, you'll see your Life Discovery Grid looks something like this. Look like this right here on your handout, where it has different sections. And what I want you to do before we even start going into it is in this gray section, you can just put your age, transition over from your Lifeline, these ages of 0 to 12, 12 to 23, whatever yours happens to be, in the different columns. So you should have at least 3, at most 5 of those different kinds of columns. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 15 minutes now in this next section. Won't be able to fully get all this. You're going to want to go home and do some more work on this, even beyond the weekend, just to kind of fill things out. But we want you to look at each of these chapters, and we want you to look for 5 things that are happening. 1, your heritage. By heritage, here's what we mean. The stuff that was happening in your family or things that just began to inform that section of your life. So, for instance, a couple things that I put here. I was at Bob Jones in that section of my life. We had what I'd later be able to call oikos, a sense of extended family household that was doing life together in 4 families. It was amazing. But I also would later pick up, hey, we were living in some legalism. I also remember that we had a kind of poverty mentality. We never had enough money. We really just were making it from week to week, and we really, that was kind of, even our mentality was that we were supposed to be poor kind of thing. So that was kind of heritage. In the second chapter of my life, I remember going through some times where, we were, as a family, trying to figure out what it means to be Christian, because now we're outside of that bubble that we were living in, and we're living in Florida, trying to figure out personally, is God good or is he just right? That's all heritage stuff that's happening in my life. The high points, now you could expand those high points beyond the ones that you have on your page. So, in this 0 to 12, playing soccer, having friends, got saved as a little kid when I was like 4 years old, made my first steps toward Jesus. That's all there in the high point pieces. Hard times, the only thing I can really remember is my grandma dying during that time, and that was a big deal. Hand of God moments, I remember us praying over a deacon who had cancer in his life as a church and him getting healed of that. Remember checks arriving in the mail because we didn't have enough money to pay the bills, and checks arriving with just the right amount of money because we prayed for it, kind of thing. Heroes, my mom and dad. Mr. Jim was my Sunday school teacher as a little kid. He was the best storyteller I've ever been around. I think that's where I get my passion for storytelling from. Best storyteller. He also coached our soccer team, even though he didn't know how to play soccer, along with my dad, but he didn't have kids of his own. He would take us to McDonald's during choir practice. He just was just a hero in my life. Second chapter, Dr. Goodman, Dr. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, these are places. So now what you do in the next 15 minutes is just go through and at least try and get something in every box in the next 15 minutes of your chapters. You can go back and fill out even more of that later. But you got 15 minutes now by yourself. And by the way, in this 15 minutes, if you need to get up and walk around, you can do that. In this 15 minutes, if you need to take a bathroom break, you can do that as well. But 15 minutes to go through. Now, a couple things. If you turn to section 2, some of you are example people. If you turn to section 2, we give you 2 examples of people who have done this, so you can take a look at what they've done in their lives. Also, we know that there's some of you that need some directions or some questions in regard to each of these things to help you think through. So the next 15 pages after the Life Discovery Grid is just instructions or helpful kind of pieces on this whole deal. So you've got examples, you've got instructions that can help you along with this as well. But we're going to give you 15 minutes to begin to populate your Life Discovery Grid. We're going to come back and we're going to move this one more time, and then we'll be done, all right? We'll move it one more time. So you got 15 minutes. We'll put it on the countdown screen now. But try and get at least one thing in every box. Try and get several things. Again, I'm going to push you here because I want you to get as much work as you possibly can done while we're in here. So work hard for the next 15 minutes at filling out your Life Discovery Grid. Ready? Go. All right, so we've done now inventory of our stories. We've begun to do some interpretation. We want this next piece to be a move from interpretation to articulation. So here's what we want you to do. Now, as you go back, and give you 5 minutes, and again, you can work on this later as well. So we're not asking you to put anything in cement. Let's just start this process. But now go back through every chapter, and what we want to try and do is name what was happening in that chapter. So we want to get to give it a chapter title. All right, so if you get the chapter title, this chapter, what would you title it? Here's the way that I chapter title my titles. First chapter of my life was a whole lot of addition, just God bringing some great things to my life, and it just felt like more stuff was going on, and it was just really, really good. Second chapter of my life felt like it's like subtraction. We moved, felt like my friends got stripped away, went through 2 knee surgeries, was told I could never play soccer again, felt like my dream of my life was stripped away. Even though there were some good things that happened, it wasn't all bad, it felt like a chapter of subtraction in my life. When I got married, it felt like a new chapter of multiplication. Had married, we got kids, we had kids. We started a ministry called Wayfair, and things just kind of exploded on that. It felt like a huge multiplication chapter of my life. We went in the next chapter through, our ministry went through a kind of covenantal breakdown, then we went through some friendships that had a covenantal breakdown, and so 35 to 41 felt like just a season of division. It felt like even though there were a lot of good things that happened again, there was just 2 major covenantal breakdowns that defined that 6 years of my life. And so what we want to do is just say, okay, what do you want to name it? So my wife, you can see her example. We called her Kathy in the book, all right? But it's really my wife. Don't tell her I told you that, all right? When Kim looks at her chapters, she titles them, here's what she says. It's happy, first, several years of her life, into hurt. As a teenage girl, she went through a lot of mean girl stuff, and there's an incredible story there. But it was hurt, into health in college, and the beginning of hope, and then through hacked. And so that's the way that she titles her chapters. But here's what I want you to do. Here's the interpretive and articulation piece of this. We want you to title the chapters that are, but then in light of what you've titled them, we want you to anticipate what the next chapter of your life might look like. So for me, as I look at addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, I'm anticipating the next chapter of my life is an exponential chapter that I'm stepping into. Nope, it can be anything. So a lot of people, thanks for asking that, Tom. A lot of people will use like songs, on the radio, or they'll use movie titles or whatever. You can use whatever you want. You can be as creative as you want. You might want them all to start in the same letter. You might want to, work through something like this. We encourage you to be as creative as possible. Tomorrow we're going to come back and share some of our stories through these chapter titles, all right? So we're going to give you 5 minutes. Again, just get as much as you can here. We're not going to put anything in cement right now. 5 minutes to name your chapter titles and name potentially the chapter that you think might happen next in your life, all right? So 5 minutes, and then we'll come back here, and we'll do one more quick little session, then we'll be done for the night, all right?